and Sage Cole, and it's 10 a.m., August 4th at the Freiburg New Church Assembly. This is the second lecture of the day, and my lecture title is Be Love, Be Honest, Be Useful. And I'm really feeling very grateful for all of your efforts to make this possible for me to join in virtually. I really didn't want to miss second week. I felt so excited when I saw the topic that you all had chosen to look more deeply at George's uh, last written piece for the Messenger. I know I had brought copies of that several years ago when I started offering my talks on Be Love, Be Honest, Be Useful, because this work that I'm doing now feels very connected to his message. So I didn't want to miss the opportunity to speak. I know some of you have heard me speak on this before. I did a lecture on each of these one year, I believe. It'll be different to share them all as a whole in just this short 30 minutes, but I'm looking forward to that opportunity. Some of you know these principles, be loved, be honest, be useful, are at the heart of a new ministry that I have founded as of 2025 called the Helen Keller Spiritual Life Collaborative. So I've been in this work for a little while and always looking to hone my elevator speech. So it's good to be able to tighten the message and share it in a shorter time. And I hope that you'll get something from it today. Because what I'm forming and creating really is an experiment with making room for the emergence of new forms of new church life. In George's lecture, of course, he's speaking about the real new church. And since becoming a Swedenborgian at the age of 13, I've always been in conversations and heard people talk about the real new church, talk about the idea that the invitation of the new church is much bigger than our organization or a particular congregation or a particular community. And it's interesting because I always heard that and was interested to engage that, thinking about the new church as these kind of the evolution of consciousness that has occurred around our planet in different forms. And after being ordained in our tradition and serving for a good 2 decades, and serving in parishes and different unique forms of new church life, what I really began to be curious about is, okay, well, sure, I definitely honor and I'm humble enough to say that our institution, our organization is not the fullness of the new church, that it's always inherently going to be bigger than whatever we're doing. And I want to be a part of that bigger thing, right? I want the real new church to live and be present in the things that we're doing, right? It can exist within our institutions and it can exist outside of them. And I began to be very curious about what that might look and feel like. How could we structure a community to just make a little more room for new church life to be living and moving? And after serving in parish ministry in particular for a while and recognizing the realities of parish ministry, the dwindling numbers, the lack of engagement, it just became sort of glaringly obvious to me that like this form, as beautiful as it is, and as much as it has formed, I'm sure many people in the room in their life of faith in a way that has been good and full of love and full of truth and full of usefulness, for whatever reason, at this moment in our history, it's not resonating and living in the same way. So knowing and being taught, for so many years that the new church is everywhere, why would we be bound by this model? Like, why would we feel forced to stay in this pathway or with this structure when we believe the new church to be emerging everywhere? Certainly, there are other structures and other forms that can make room for new church life to be made manifest. And that just created this powerful curiosity in me to wonder, to make room to hear new possibilities. And it was in that context of possibility that the vision of honoring Helen Keller's life and seeing her as someone who was open to possibilities, right? Someone who was living a new church life particular, completely on her own terms in her own way, not bound by any particular um, religious body or denominational structure, in relationship and in community with those structures within the Swedenborgian world, but not kind of primarily allegiant to any one of them, and really living it in a deeply embodied way that empowered her to interact with people of all different types of religions and cultures and communities. So her inspiration has been a huge part of this mission of mine that has landed in my heart. And then the other thing that I received was this way of framing our theological understanding of what God is. We are all familiar with Swedenborg's depiction of the divine life being the embodiment of love, wisdom, and usefulness, this powerful trinity. And that there's a way in what I've begun to experience, there's a way to hold this trinity as an organizing principle of what it means for me as an individual, and then what it means for me in community with others to be the new church, to be in the experience of the new church. And I'm so happy to come to be offering my talk after Chelsea. So much of what she's sharing feels like part of this. She too is embodying and bringing into being new ways of understanding how we can be the new church right now, right? Not after we die, not after another 300 years on the planet, not after our churches start to really grow and our numbers increase, but just right now, exactly as we are. So that's my invitation with Be Loved, Be Honest, Be Useful. And over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to take us through these three movements and invite us into some reflection. And then I really look forward to hearing your thoughts and experiences afterwards. So let's begin with Be Love. I've got it behind me on my wall there. As we know, as we learned from Swedenborg, love is the substance of life, right? Love is the primary energy of life. And so really, to me, what I have come to experience for myself is for me to do anything good, for me to be anything like the new church, I have to start from a place of honoring and recognizing that love is in me and actually is me. And that resting in that and knowing that of myself is incredibly powerful. And one thing I want to suggest, and I would love to hear your thoughts after this, is everybody there in that room right now, I can't see you, but I sense you, that all of you have come to the Freiburg New Church Assembly this year and are sitting in these chairs because of some force of love. I don't, and it'll be interesting if there's some of you that disagree with me, that you didn't make the choice to be there purely because of some kind of rational, logical thought process of this will be, the right thing to do because my mind tells me that. On some level, your kind of allegiance to this community and or your identity as a Swedenborgian, your connection to the new church, my suspicion is that somewhere in your story, that choice that you've made was motivated and is motivated by love, by an experience of love, and by receiving something from a community, either whether it was a person or a group of people, a particular congregation, a mentor, a family member, someone who loved you, saw the love in you, honored that love, gave you a sense of belonging and connection that made you go, oh yeah, I can be in this community. This makes sense to me. This is a place where I can thrive and grow. And it's my sense that love it's just the most important thing. And I think sometimes we miss it because it's like it's like the water we're swimming in. And so when I put Be Love first, that is acknowledging that our primary responsibility and the primary energy that's active right now, drawing us into new church life on the inside, and then also drawing us together to experience new church life with one another, it is love. And to come to understand ourselves as that love, just it is what fuels all of our efforts, right? It is what creates the ground by which we are able to learn and act and change and grow and heal and create. And so it's just really, really vital. And I often suggest, and when I hold retreats, I often just call them a be love retreat, because like if that's all we can do, like that's fine. Like if we can just be together in a loving space, that in itself is going to be healing. And we really have to start there before we do any other work, before we are willing to learn things about ourselves, before we're willing to acknowledge our sins or our needs for repentance, that any of those actions of change, of growth, of learning are really only going to land in our bodies and in our communities if we start from that place of love. So that's the first invitation, is to just be loved together. And in my work, I create, Zoom gatherings where we do devotions, in many ways coming to worship and going through a liturgy, singing, all of these actions all of these liturgical practices that we have, meditation, sound baths, right? Many of those things are helping us to just be present in the moment, right? Feel our bodies, feel this inflow of life that is coming into it, and take the time to appreciate that life and to see ourselves as, worthy of that life, right? Just as worthy as the trees and the birds and the fish in the river, that we are worthy of that life and that love. And by being that love, we are celebrating God. We are worshiping. It's really that simple. And the second turn of the Trinity, of course, though, is it's really that simple. And yet I'm guessing all of us can acknowledge, and yet it often feels really, really hard, right? It often feels really, really hard to just be in a state of love. I think for much of my life, love felt like something that I would stumble upon, right? I didn't really know how to cultivate it in myself intentionally, but I would be given it from time to time, and I would have these incredible moments of feeling like I did belong to the world and I was connected, and it was so lovely to feel that. But then I would fall away from that knowing. So that just seems to be part of this human journey, is that we are totally connected to God and to life and to one another, and yet we don't perceive it because we've been given this ability to see ourselves as unique and different and separate. And as Chelsea pointed out, to be kind of confused by our senses. Well, if I'm alone all day, that must mean nobody loves me and I'm disconnected, right? All of these sensory experiences that can cause us to believe that we are not being supported by life, that we are not connected to life. And so that's where Be Honest feels really important and really hard. But if we're not feeling love, if we're not feeling connected, then the path to getting back to connection, in my mind, is to be honest about that. And I don't know if you've ever had that experience in community, but when we can say out loud, right, that I feel really isolated or disconnected, sometimes that's all we need to like get back to love. And usually right away we hear like, oh, I feel that way too. And we all sort of recognize and name this illusion that we've been getting tricked by. And when we can name it, when we can say it to ourselves, and in situations where we feel safe with others, together we can dispel the illusion. And this feels to me like an essential element of the new church, is that we are called to be together to dispel illusions, to get to the truth, and to live those truths. And so in the Be Honest invitation, it's an invitation to tell the truth about, again, as Chelsea pointed out, like all the different parts of ourselves, all the different kind of competing stories that we carry that are at odds with the higher truth of love that we know is primary, that we know we can return to. Like, we know it's our source, we know it's what's real. What's in the way? What's gotten in the way of me knowing myself to be connected and whole? And the process of being honest with our experiences of pain, suffering, stories of whatever, limitation, exclusion, all of that process of honesty clears away uh, the falsity so that we can discover the truth. And, you know, I intentionally chose for the second turn of the Trinity not to be truth, right? Because truth is tricky, right? It's really tricky in our planet right now. We often battle about what is true. And the invitation here is to keep truth very personal and connected to ourselves. And this is something I think is really deeply connected to the vision of the new church, that the new church is not about converting the masses to our opinion, but it's about coming into alignment with truth for ourselves, doing our own inner work with the truth, and then letting our alignment be a blessing to others. And living by our truth, speaking our truths openly and boldly, but not in a way where we are feeling the need to change or compel others, but turning that question back to ourselves. Do we really believe this stuff? Are we really living it? And when I hold my Be Honest conversations, which I started this past uh, spring, and they'll be continuing in the fall, and I'm holding them around theological topics. So the pillars of the new church, things like God is love, honesty, usefulness, things like the New Jerusalem that we believe we're heading towards, heaven and hell, divine providence, right? Do we really believe these things? Are all of our parts on board, right? Do all of our parts really believe that there is a divine providence and it is leading us to heaven? And I'm so excited, and it feels so good to be in conversation with other people about those topics, not just from well, this is what Swedenborg tells us, but this is my experience of this. And being honest about it. Sometimes I doubt, right? There's parts of me that don't believe that we're heading in a good direction. There's parts of me that are confused by this. And also sharing our stories of what it's been like to hold this truth and let that truth challenge those falsities, challenge those assumptions, and let that truth really change our lived experience. So the invitation to be honest is from this place of love, from this place of knowing we're all connected to God. We're all full of this loving energy that is good and that doesn't actually need any words, doesn't need to be explained, it doesn't need to be understood. It just is from this place of acceptance, being in spiritual community in a way where we can help each other to get more honest with ourselves and with one another. And to really grapple with the truths that we profess and really reflect on how it is changing our lives. And I don't know about you, but to me, at this point in my journey, I'm so hearing someone tell me their experience of a theological principle, a story, or some way that it changed them is just like 1,000 times as useful to me as somebody just kind of reciting this is what this truth means from the past. It's alive and it's embodied, and it becomes I think it becomes a real thing. And actually, I feel very excited about the space I'm holding right now, because I think AI is really challenging us on this level, because AI can tell us what Swedenborg believed about things, right? AI might be able to do that better than you or I or anyone who's theologically trained in this tradition. But they don't have any experience. They don't have any embodied life. And so it's our embodied living of these truths that actually has the divine in it, that has life in it. And it's so useful to share and to learn from each other's lived experience in humility, not as let me tell you about this so that you can follow me and do it exactly as I did, but let me share my experience and how I moved through it and what changed and what I lost. And then you go, oh wow, I see that happening in my experience. Um, and we feel less alone, we feel more connected. And
and hold it all together, right? Like, and that, the perfection is increased by all the diverse pieces that come into it. And the more, the more differences we have, the more perfection that is created. So
Yes. Yes. Beautiful. Thank you, Catherine.
Reverend Sage Cole. It's Circe Moss McDonald
Oh,
from.
Circe, nice to see
Hi,
you.
hi there. So good to see you. I love you too. Uh, you came to the Portland New Church in June 2025 and presented your Be Love, Be Honest, Be Useful. And that was at a time when I was just coming on as the new spiritual director of we're the Portland New Church, and we're also the main Center for Sacred Arts. So we are embodying what you're talking about. It's this historic building and community that has adhered to Swedenborgian teachings and theology for several generations, and now I'm the inheritor. I'm taking us in a different direction, along with the help of Magnus de Rudlin, who is here with me.
Hey,
Also,
Magnus.
James Kumi, he came with me too. And then Todd Glacy is out and about on the property right now, but he's here as well. So we're taking the organization in a new direction, but it's because of the bridge that you've built with the Helen Keller Spiritual Collaborative and the way that you talk about it, that helps to reassure me that our intention to adhere to Swedenborgian principles, we can remain honest in that, remain in relationship to those teachings while taking the organization and our community in the direction that it's already headed in. Like we're shepherding something that is larger than us, and we're honoring every person who comes into that building. They're seeking, they're creating, and they're on their own spiritual journey, and we completely honor that. So it feels like I'm walking a bit of a tightrope of wanting to remain true and faithful to the Swedenborgian roots, and also opening the Constitution and the bylaws and the Sunday services into a more generous and maybe generous isn't the right word, a more open container.
Sure.
So, but I just wanted to really name you as being very influential as a bridge. And also to say too that the Swedenborgians that I've met, like in San Francisco and here in Maine, are all very kind, welcoming, and compassionate with what our mission is. So I'm really encouraged by all the willingness to go along with our project. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Thank you for that feedback. Because that's really a big part, I think, of what I hope for this to be, is I am really interested in the organizing principle of what does it mean to be a Swedenborgian? I think we have a lot of different opinions about that. And it's okay to have different opinions. And I certainly look out at the humans that I know who are connected to this organization, and I just think we all have a use. And God is doing something in all of us. And so any like twittering or like this is that or is just waste of time. Let's just look at what is. And I love how you say, Circe, something's happening that's beyond you, right? It's not just you and your big brain figuring out the next steps, right? Something, energy is swelling. And that's what I deeply believe the promise of the new church is something longs to be born right now. And born potential right through, out of the present circumstances of our institution that for a long time have had this sense of decline and so to see that not as a problem, not as a mistake, but actually something that has been tilling the space and the soil for something new to emerge. And I think if love is at the core of that and truth is at the core of that, we will be useful and something will come. And we don't even know, like Catherine says, like we don't know what's coming. We might need to get ready, right? there might be lots of work to do. So so now is a good time to get grounded in that, so we can really be faithful to what God is longing to bring into being. So I'm glad that I look forward to visiting again. And Portland New Church was my first church, right? So that having a sense of community with that space, caring for this tradition in that space, and watching it move in new and different directions, I think feels so heartening to me. Anyone else? 5 more minutes.
Hi, Sage, it's Jessie.
Hey, Jessie.
So I don't have a Swedenborgia church in my community. I do have a church that is 4 houses from mine. That's a UCC/Methodist church in name, but many different traditions that people attend, and many gray hairs, and probably maybe 15 to 20 people who come every week. And when I first started, it was slightly bigger, but not much, and we had 2 buildings. And because that there used to be 2 big congregations, and they connected. And then we had 1 congregation, and we would go to 1 building for the summer and 1 for the winter. And it just everything was about the buildings. And I actually was raised in the Episcopal Church, and I love the space and the organ and everything about churches. But we've grown so much as people as we first gave 1 building back to the town, and then the second building we spent about 5 years thinking about, talking about, what do we need this building? This is all about fixing the roof. We're spending all our time thinking, well, we don't have enough money to do this or that. And we finally found a nonprofit that is come in, Northeast. It's related to Northeast Farmers of Color Land Trust, and number 1, just a new group of people opening our eyes to a lot of different ideas. But I was a trustee, or I guess I still am a trustee, but I was a trustee of the building, and the building is no longer ours. And I'm just amazed at how much that has opened up for me. Even just, I walk in the building and I think, well, I should be watching if the heat is on or this or that, and I don't need to worry about that. This is why I'm at church. And we intentionally did this because we wanted to focus on the community outside of our church. What can we do for our community as opposed to our building? But it has really caused a lot of growth, and some of it is not easy. They might not be vacuuming every week. Oh no, what do we do? Or why aren't those people talking to us about this? Well, that's not our business. That's their thing. So it's a painful process, but it does bring so much growth. And I think it's not a Swedenborgia church, but it's the same idea of, I was personally so stuck in that I've got to be have this space. The assembly really helped me because we're sitting in a room right now where we have chapel every day, and it's not a church, but I feel very I feel close to God here. So
Yeah, beautiful. Well, in that process of change, I didn't mention this when I went through, but I do have 2 minutes. So, I see be love, be honest, be useful as be love is everything is not changing, right? God is God. It's love. It's whole. We're perfect and complete. Be honest is, and we're changing. We start as infants, and then we're going to grow, hopefully, to be ripe old ladies one day. And that process is hard, and it requires letting go and moving on. And so be honest is about recognizing that we're regenerating and we're changing, and that's as it should be. That's good. That's what that's all about. And all of that is leading us to this be useful, which is about a community that's thriving together, where all of us know we are love, know we're changing, and want to do that, be on that journey together. And it just requires an honoring of all the different stages of holding on, letting go, grasping forward in the dark. And this also really resonates to me with the sacraments. Be love is very much a communion experience, right? We are receivers of life. So when we're in be love, we are in communion with the universe. Be honest is very much a baptism invitation. We are being washed, we are being regenerated, we are being cleaned, and that's as it needs to be. So again, this is a practice that isn't in rejection to the sacraments or the elements of church, but just seeing them as realities that are taking place moment to moment, in our lived experience. So thanks for bringing up the letting go, because that's a hard one for us humans, but so vital if we want new things to come into being.
Hi,
Thank
Sage.
you,
This is
everyone.
Martha again. I
Okay.
want to thank Jesse. That was very awakening to me. Our church is struggling. It really is. And I think that's a great thing to turn it over to a nonprofit. Take away some of that struggle. We gave up our main focus of gaining income this year, and people are working very hard to get more income, but it's not going to come anywhere near what our booth brought in to us. I like that idea, and I like hearing her say that it was freeing. And I think it might be freeing to a lot of people.
Yeah,
So thank you, Jesse.
beautiful. God always makes a way, and it doesn't always have to mean an end. It can mean a new beginning. Actually, I think it usually does. I think that's what Swedenborg tells us. Wonderful. I'll be back for discussion with my big head. Thank you all for your time.